Imagine waking up tomorrow and it is minus 30 degrees outside. There is no furnace humming in the basement, no insulated walls, no double-glazed windows keeping out the wind, no down jacket hanging by the door. There is nothing between you and the killing cold except your own bare skin and whatever you can find in the frozen world around you. A modern human, dropped into those conditions without preparation, would be dead in a matter of hours. Hypothermia would set in within minutes. Your core temperature would plummet, your organs would begin to shut down, and the cold would swallow you whole. And yet, for tens of thousands of years, our ancestors lived exactly like this, and they did not just survive, they thrived. Between 20,000 and 30,000 years ago, during the Last Glacial Maximum, Europe was a frozen wasteland almost beyond imagination. Massive ice sheets, some nearly 3 kilometers thick, smothered Scandinavia, Britain, and much of northern Europe. Glaciers crept as far south as modern-day Germany and Poland. Average temperatures plunged 15 to 20 degrees below what we experience today. The landscape was a treeless steppe, hammered by relentless winds, buried under permafrost. And somewhere in this merciless world, small bands of Neanderthals and early Homo sapiens were raising children, hunting mammoths, and finding ways to make it through another winter. So how did they do it? The answer begins beneath the ground. Our ancestors understood something fundamental about survival. The Earth itself is an insulator. Archaeological sites across Europe reveal that Ice Age humans dug semi-subterranean shelters, carving into hillsides and frozen ground to escape the worst of the wind and cold. But perhaps the most astonishing discovery lies near the village of Mezhyrich in central Ukraine. There, archaeologists unearthed the remains of a dwelling roughly 15,000 years old, constructed from the bones of at least 95 mammoths. Massive jawbones formed the walls. Skulls and shoulder blades were stacked and interlocked like bricks. Tusks arched overhead to create a domed roof, which was then draped with animal hides and packed with earth. It was not elegant, but it was effective. These mammoth bone huts could maintain an interior temperature significantly warmer than the deadly air outside, creating a pocket of survivable warmth in the heart of an ice age.
But shelter alone was not enough. Fire was the true heartbeat of Ice Age survival, and maintaining it was a matter of life and death. These were not casual campfires lit for comfort. They were carefully managed, continuously burning flames that required constant attention, day and night, through blizzards and darkness. Fuel was scarce in a world without forests, so our ancestors burned whatever they could: dried grasses, animal dung, and, most importantly, animal fat. Bones rich in marrow were cracked open and fed to the flames. The fat from mammoths, bison, and reindeer became a critical energy source, not just for human bodies, but for the fires that kept those bodies alive. Keeping a fire burning around the clock was not a solo task. It was a communal responsibility, shared across the group, with someone always awake, always watching, always feeding the flame. If the fire died, everyone died. Then came what might be the single most underrated revolution in all of human history: the invention of the bone needle. Around 40,000 years ago, early Homo sapiens began crafting delicate needles from animal bone, some no larger than a modern sewing needle, with carefully drilled eyes for threading sinew. This seemingly simple tool changed everything. Before the needle, our ancestors could drape animal hides over their bodies, crude, loose, and full of gaps where the cold seeped through. After the needle, they could stitch hides together, creating tailored, fitted garments, layered clothing that trapped body heat against the skin. Pants, parkas, boots, hoods, gloves. For the first time, humans could engineer their own insulation. Anthropologist Mark Collard and his team at Simon Fraser University published research suggesting that this difference in clothing technology may have been one of the decisive factors separating Homo sapiens from Neanderthals. Both species endured the same brutal cold. Both were intelligent, resourceful, and physically tough. Neanderthals were, in fact, more muscularly robust, with stockier bodies better adapted to cold climates. But the archaeological record shows almost no evidence that Neanderthals ever developed fitted, sewn clothing. They likely relied on simple wraps of animal skin, which left extremities exposed. Homo sapiens, with their bone needles and tighter social networks, created garments that covered the entire body. In a world where a few degrees of heat loss could mean the difference between life and death, that technological edge may have tipped the balance of survival, and ultimately, of extinction.
Beyond tools and shelters, there was another survival strategy so simple it is easy to overlook: each other. Our ancestors slept in tightly packed groups, sharing body heat through the long, frozen nights. This was not merely instinct. It was calculated communal survival. Archaeological evidence of sleeping arrangements, wear patterns on shelter floors, and the positioning of hearths all suggest that Ice Age humans deliberately organized their living spaces to maximize warmth sharing. Bodies pressed together in the darkness, breathing the same smoky air, keeping one another alive until dawn. And here is the remarkable paradox of it all. The cold did not just threaten humanity, it sharpened us. The relentless pressure of surviving Ice Age winters forced our ancestors into a cascade of innovation. Better tools, better clothing, better social organization, tighter cooperation, more sophisticated planning. The groups that solved the problem of cold survived to pass on their knowledge. The groups that did not were erased. In a very real sense, the deadliest winters in human history were also the forge in which modern human ingenuity was shaped. And the echoes of those ancient strategies are still alive today. The Inuit peoples of the Arctic still build shelters from the materials the frozen world provides, ice and snow shaped into igloos that can maintain interior temperatures 40 degrees warmer than the air outside. The Sami people of northern Scandinavia still herd reindeer and use their hides for warmth, following patterns of survival that stretch back thousands of years. These are not primitive holdovers. They are living proof that the solutions our ancestors invented in the Ice Age were so effective, so brilliantly adapted to the cold, that no modern technology has truly improved upon them. We think of survival as something that happens in emergencies, a crisis, a temporary state. But for our ancestors, survival was not a moment. It was a way of life that lasted millennia. Every tool they carved, every fire they kept burning, every needle they threaded was an act of defiance against a world that was actively trying to kill them. And they won. But the cold was not the only catastrophe they faced. Roughly 74,000 years ago, long before the Last Glacial Maximum, a supervolcano called Toba erupted in what is now Sumatra, plunging the entire planet into a volcanic winter that may have pushed humanity to the very edge of extinction. If you want to know how our species survived that even darker chapter, when the population may have crashed to just a few thousand individuals, then you should watch our previous video, The Day Humanity Almost Went Extinct. That story begins where this one ends, at the razor-thin line between survival and oblivion.